Hey guys, it's John with Get Some Custom Baits. We are here at northern Utah's beautiful Newton Reservoir, fishing for largemouth bass, and they also have tiger muskie, crappie, bluegill, other species in here as well. But I went up there for a couple of days, just spent an overnight little trip on like a Tuesday, Wednesday, I believe, and just had a blast catching these fish. This first video, we got started with a rattle trap. I've had a lot of success on rattle traps recently, and so I really wanted to fish this Delta craw pattern that I've had success here in the past as well. And we got started off with a nice small fish and then started to build in size and quantity on that Delta craw. Beautiful pattern. Love fishing it because it looks very natural, but it is also very bright, easy for the fish to see. So it seems to really do well in stained water, which is what we had. And this is actually a decent bass for this lake. They had really low water levels about 2 to 3 years ago. If you saw my last video, I mean, it was really low, like probably less than 15, maybe 10% capacity. Deepest I could find was 8 feet of water. So I'm pretty sure a lot of the fish did not survive. And so this was on the larger end of the fish that I caught. I know those of you that are in other states, like the southern states, this is a baby. But here in Utah, most people would be really happy with a fish like this. And occasionally we'll catch some pretty decent tiger muskie on these as well. I know it's risky fishing these for tiger muskies because they're not the largest bait. Typically when I fish for tiger muskie, I'm catching them by accident on bass gear, and you always run that risk of the fish cutting your line and breaking you off. But if you fish a larger bait that they don't typically get the whole bait in their mouth anyway, then you always have pretty good success in landing them. So, but with these lipless crankbaits, I might have had one that broke me off. I never saw what it was, but I did lose one bait to a fish, and it's possible it was a tiger muskie that cut me off. I do feel really strongly about getting these fish back in the water as quickly as possible, especially this one. It had a torn gill. I don't know if you could see it well in the video, but it looked like it had been caught previously because I could see that it had this torn gill long before I ever even got it in the boat. But it was a small fish, and it got back in the water really quick and seemed to swim off just beautifully on its own. So this was the second tiger muskie that I caught on that Delta craw lipless crankbait. I think that they just recently stocked them because they're smaller than what I typically catch on average. But again, the water level was so low, I think there was a pretty big die-off a couple years back. And so these are fish that have just recently been stocked, probably in the last 2 years or so. And normally I have a net that's a cradle style net that I use for these tiger muskies, but I didn't even bring it with me because I wasn't expecting to catch a lot of them. Normally I try not to even take them out of the water. I just keep them at the side of the boat, maybe pick them up for a quick picture. But these were all really small fish, and they all seemed to survive really well. The larger fish you definitely have to be a lot more careful with and handle with much more care. Definitely not a delicate release there. Sorry, little fishy.
There's a big ass tiger musky right there. That's what you're looking for.
Anything that'll bite. Try to eat your motor?
Yeah, two is coming for me, dude.
That's
Right in the boat and hit it.
that is crazy.
Well, it wasn't that big tiger muskie he was talking about, but it was kind of cool to catch a fish throwing it right in that same general direction. Definitely got my adrenaline pumping for a minute there. So one of the reasons that these lipless crankbaits were working so well for me, I believe, is that it has a lot to do with depth control and where they were running in the water column. I was catching a lot of fish in that 6 to 8 foot range, which was absolutely perfect for these lipless crankbaits. It would run in that range just kind of with a steady retrieve, not too fast, not too slow. You can see I caught a couple more fish on that Delta craw. Eventually I did have a fish break me off, as mentioned, and I had to start searching my baits for another one that would also produce fish. So then I switched to this clown pattern because that was the only Delta
There's
Craw
some fish.
bait that I had brought with me, but I wanted to fish something that had at least some sort of red on it still. And I did catch a few fish on this clown pattern. Definitely not as productive as the Delta Craw was, but it still caught some decent fish, so I was happy about that.
On the jerk bait. Little guy though.
So then I had switched to a different pattern. I wanted to try this, I call it a Tennessee shad, but in the end I ended up noticing how much it actually resembled crappie as well, because there's both shad and crappie in here that I know the bass are eating. And then this bass that I caught on this Tennessee shad colored bait spit up
I guess that's why the shad pattern is
a
working.
fish as it was jumping out of the water, and it definitely looked like it was most likely a crappie. So, which is why I think this pattern was working so well. So it's crazy how sometime with fishing, nothing seems to work out in your favor. And then other times when fishing, everything seems to work out in your favor. Had I not lost that Delta Craw and that fish that broke me off, I don't know that I ever would have made the switch to this Tennessee shad Lipless Crankbait. And this by far ended up being my best bait. There was a stretch where I caught 5 fish in 5 casts, and then I kept counting to see how far I could go, and I caught 7 fish in 10 casts. Definitely made the trip completely epic. I just absolutely could not stop catching fish throwing this bait, and it was amazing. And I probably never would have even tried it had I not lost the Delta Craw, because that bait was producing fish, but definitely not as much as this bait did. So I'm definitely glad that it worked out in my favor here.
A little bit again. Fuckers though.
So again, these fish, they weren't the biggest fish, but my goodness, they were so incredibly healthy. They had so much girth to them that, you know, just an average 13, 14-inch fish felt like a 2-pounder. And then I'd get him to the boat and it wasn't quite as big as I was hoping, but some of them just had some really nice bellies. I did have a couple fish that were probably pushing 2 to 3 pounds pretty easily. So, but not what Newton used to be. I used to catch 4 and 5 pounders with regularity, and so really hoping that the next couple of years that this lake will be able to grow some larger bass. I'm really excited for what the future holds.
Oh. Nice fish. Nice fish.
It was crazy to feel and see how much the fish would attack these lipless crankbaits as well. Like there were times where I would be fishing it and all of a sudden I would feel my line go slack and the fish was going up and attacking it and producing that slack line. But they just missed the bait, and so then I would just keep that steady retrieve and eventually they'd come back and hit it. And so it was almost like you'd get a warning that you were getting a bite or that you were about to catch a fish, which was an amazing feeling. Definitely gets your adrenaline pumping again. Man, these tiger muskie had so much spunk to them, so much energy. You can see this one almost broke my rod, just taking a quick, fast dive underneath the boat. Even though they're not the biggest fish, this is a really fun size of tiger muskie to catch. I'd say they ran between like 20 and maybe 28 inches at the largest, but they just had so much energy. And man, just what a fun fight they would put up.
There. Poor little guy.
So I'm not gonna lie, this video does not perhaps broadcast my finesse in getting fish into the boat, but had several spit the hook as I was trying to boat flip them and stuff. But they all survived. They're all small fish and seemed to swim off just fine. But I did feel bad. I don't ever like seeing fish bounce in and out of the boat like that, but it was fun. So perhaps I deserve taking the hook to the back there with the rattle trap after the fish spit the hook, because I did bounce a few fish off the edge of the boat or so on. So maybe this was retribution. Alright, so then I saved what I would say is the best for last. I absolutely love topwater fishing for bass. There's nothing more pleasurable for me than seeing a big bass explode on a surface lure. So then I got out the frog, and I fished the frog both in the mornings and in the evenings. But I actually caught quite a few fish in the middle of the afternoon too. Anywhere I couldn't throw the rattle trap, I would make sure that I had my frog or some other topwater bait tied on and ready to go, and caught a lot of topwater fish too, even in the middle of the afternoon. So it was a blast.
Little bass, but topwater, heck yeah, baby.
I especially love these frogs in this really tight cover. There is nothing that is too thick for these frogs to run through, over the top of, behind. They're just amazing. It's almost impossible to get these things snagged. So it's a beautiful color, beautiful design. I'll show you here in a minute, but just wanted to show this particular fish because it was running across the top of the nastiest crap in less than probably a foot of water over the top of this nasty moss bed, and still produced fish that were perhaps trying to escape from the sun of the afternoon and were hiding underneath this mat. So this color was kind of just another experiment that ended up working out really well. Who would have thought? I never would have thrown a frog in this milk monkey color. It's kind of just a clear with a touch of white and blue pearl. But man, it looked beautiful as a frog, and so I started throwing it recently and have caught more fish perhaps on this color of a frog than almost any other frog that I have. So been really happy with it. And I definitely couldn't resist throwing the whopper plopper in a sexy shad color. Um, and it ended up producing quite a bit of fish too. Definitely not as weedless, of course, so you couldn't throw it in that nasty mucky stuff, but you can get it pretty close to the weed edges. And you're constantly cleaning it off all day anyway, but despite your best efforts, you can get it a little bit close, and you can still produce fish that will come out from those weed edges and just absolutely hammer the whopper plopper. So
Little dink, but it was on Topwater. Nice. On Topwater. Nice one.
And that really could have been bad. Almost lost my other rod there.
That was a nice pound and a half.
And this was one of the coolest eats of this whole trip. Something came up and attacked it and missed it the first time. I'm assuming it was the same fish. And then came back a second time and just absolutely annihilated it. And then when I got the fish to the boat, of course, you'll see that it is a tiger muskie. It's always fun to see tiger muskie attack topwater, just like it is for bass, but man, they hit it so aggressively. And I thought I was going to lose this fish because he wrapped the trolling motor for a second, but fortunately I was able to stow the motor, and the line just kind of came free as part of that process, and I was still able to land the fish just fine. Alright, I really appreciate you watching. As you can see, it was a blast. I probably caught 30 to 40 fish each day of this 2-day trip, so couldn't have had a more enjoyable time. The fish are only going to get bigger, and fishing in the years to come is only going to get better and better. So, but yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. Check out my website for any of these products. They're available anytime. And please like and subscribe if you enjoyed it for more content. Thank you.